Alright, this was a long time coming. And I mean, like, I literally said I was gonna do this after I did the underrated poison video. What took this one so long to come out? Well, I didn't want to drown you with underrated videos, and I wanted to focus on the DLC, which I am no-lifing the living heck out of right now. Now, this video is gonna be incredibly hard to make. Why is that? Well, you see, bugs as a whole are the underrated type. And there are kinda like two types of bugs. The really freaking good ones, like Volcarona, Genesect, and Scizor, and then the ones that no one is going to use, because they're not Volcarona and Scizor. It doesn't help that I've talked about bugs on some of my other underrated videos. Ariados, Venomoth, Frostmoth, Megapincer, every non-Scizor steel bug that isn't Wormadam, and definitely others. Like the time I dedicated entire videos trying to improve Ladian and Spidops. However, there is a beacon of hope. I do not have to write this by myself. For those of you who are more avid viewers, you know where this is going. The underrated poison video hit over 1,000 likes. We've saved the writer. He has made his way here gloriously to aid us in our time of need to talk about Pokemon. He was supposed to come back sooner after we paid his hospital bill following his beatdown at the hands of the birds. But he and my editor were in the hyperbolic time chamber. Because, and I quote, "They won't get me on the run back though." Celebrate his return by liking the video. I'm sure he'd appreciate it. Alright, these two are a bit of a package deal, especially since we try to avoid tie entries at this house, although there will always be ties somewhere. But like, what do you really want me to do? Talk about Dustox, but not Beautifly? Talk about Beautifly, but not Dustox? You see, I was originally gonna make them two separate spots, but as I was writing this out, it just didn't feel right. It felt more genuine to put these two in the same spot than put them in two different spots and cheat one of the other bugs out of their spotlight. Now, what makes these two underrated? Well, arguably, Dustox isn't that underrated because it had a role in the anime on Jesse's team at some point. However, I just want to bring the attention to the fact that the Smogon X and Y Dustox analysis basically says don't use Dustox, and I think it's funny. However, I just think that Dustox is a really neat design, and I love how menacing it looks. Not to mention some of us can relate to being nocturnal, as Dustox is mostly active at night. Now, as for Beautifly, I just find it to be one of those really fascinating Pokemon in the lore. It is canonically an omnivore, as its favorite food is pollen. Yet, this will not stop it from stabbing you with its mouth to drain your fluids. Despite its appearance, it's reportedly a savage. The entire Wurmple line grows up to be a menace to society. Golisopod would be higher if it were more underrated, but I'm just gonna cut to the chase and say the only thing underrated about it is its ability to be a competitive staple, because otherwise, I'm pretty sure this Pokemon is pretty much loved. Yeah, don't get me wrong, Emergency Exit is a pretty bad ability. But if Tinted Lens Lokix can show up and blaster everything with Terra Bug and minimal switch-ins, and now Knockoff, then I'm sure Golisopod and its higher attack could theoretically make something work with Terra, if it were in the game. For some reason, we don't have Golisopod in Generation 9, and this kinda makes me upset. I can't say I know what it would do that Lokix doesn't, but I'm sure it would do something. It has good resistances with that water typing added onto it, and it has Aqua Jet for yet another priority, and like, other stuff. Look, I know I sound like I'm coping right now, but I'm sure that Golisopod would be at minimum a UU-mon who competes with Slitherwing and Lokix down there. Dude, wait a minute. We can run it in the rain. Duh. Okay, but real talk though, stuff like Knockoff, Brick Break, First Impression, and Liquidation gives it something to work with. We would just need to find it if it ever returned. Alright, so why is Lokix somehow more underrated than Golisopod? You're probably wondering to yourself, and I can answer that very plainly. For you see, for everything it can do, and the fact it arguably has one of the best means of revenge killing. No one uses it in Gen 9 OU. Yeah, I know I just talked about it being in UU, but that isn't wrong. And if there's one thing I've learned about watching my rider bring Hisui Typhlosion to high ladder and win with it, it's that in the hands of a competent player with a competent enough team, you can find a niche for your Pokemon. And so, I believe it's time I truly put my hat in the ring and explain what you can do with Lokix that would give it a niche in OU. Well, one, it has knockoff now, and that's amazing. Tinted Lens knockoff is actually just crazy, because that makes your knockoff spam so freaking free. Secondly, it gets Brick Break to destroy screens. And with dark stab attacks, no ghost wants to come in to wall your Brick Break. And with the resistance to Sucker Punch, Kingambit doesn't just come in on you. Thirdly, it can also function as a U-turn pivot that can threaten to first impression you. And if you read their switch in fear of first impression, it's free momentum. I don't know about you, but I've been seeing a lot of Ogerpon on ladder. And with no chip, Terrabug Life Orb First Impression has a 50% chance to destroy Ogerpon Hearthflame from full health, in case you don't want to run Choice Band. Just make sure to have many ways to clear hazards, or switching in becomes hectic. This may be cope, but I am a Lokix believer. Okay, now this is a mon I just enjoy bringing to low OU ladder because I think it's funny that it keeps working. Masquerain has a very strange bit of qualities that let it kind of do well in Gen 9 OU, despite the fact that it's bad, and Ribombee just showed up to arguably be very much better than it. So everything I'm gonna say has been completely from personal experience using it. Firstly, I think a Sticky Webber that can play offensive is an insane schmix. Terra Water can outright be not just a defensive Terra, but an offensive one to jump scare the bulky grounds and the offensive fires that thought they were safe, and pretty much decimate them with Quiver Dance boosted Hydro Pump. Thirdly, its web setting capabilities were really useful to me because I like using Garchomp, and so getting webs up to get Garchomp in, pre-scale shot, was very, very nice. If I didn't Terra a different teammate, I liked using Swords Dance Ironhead Garchomp with Terra Steel to lure in and destroy Enamorus before sweeping the slowed down team with Earthquake and either Dragon Claw or Outrage, depending on how crazy I felt that day. And of course, who can forget Intimidate to weaken the physical attackers of the tier, just to further make sure that the webs are going up or that Quiver Dance is popping off. God, I love this mon. I think it's underrated because I've seen very little of it, and Ribombee is gonna overshadow it, which I think is just unfair. So I've gone into Vikavolt already in that video about Pokemon you should use in the Teal Mass DLC. So I'm not gonna waste too much of your time going over movesets when I could instead talk about just how cool it is. Yeah, sure, big special attack, destroys physical walls, can get webs up, stuff we've discussed before. But I like the idea behind the flying stag beetle that can shoot thunderbolts at people. Or if it carries around a charger bug as a spare battery, it becomes a thunderbolt machine gun. Don't believe me? Well, here's the Pokemon Shield Dex entry on the screen right now in front of your face. Go ahead and read it. I'll wait. Alright, time's up. I hope you don't read as slow as Vikavolt moves with its 43 base speed stat, because we're moving on. And quickly. I need to before someone asks me why I haven't brought up Trick Room. As we all know, I am one of the more avid S-Cavalier enjoyers, who loves to use it as an alternate to Scizor with its excellent defensive capabilities and its offensive prowess. However, I don't think I've brought up Accelgor before. Not in recent memory anyway. If you're a more old school Mystic Umbreon fan, let me know if I did it before. With that said, I think that Accelgor is a rather hilarious sweeper when you think about it. It doesn't have to invest that much in speed, with its whopping base 145 outrunning a lot of Pokemon. But also, Throat Spray Bug Buzz triggering Unburden makes it the fastest unburdened sweeper. Theoretically, if it were to return, due to its higher speed, assuming that most Sneaslers are adamant, which I think they are, you only need to invest 56 EVs into a modest unburdened Accelgor in order to get the jump on Sneasler. but 188 if you fear the random Jolly set. Regardless, the free investment you get to put in bulk means that Accelgor can live just long enough to do some major damage, and with access to Giga Drain, it can keep going thanks to its ability to heal back up. Water Shuriken for priority and Sludge Bomb to kill fairies is nice too. That, or I guess you could make it a Toxic Spikes and Spikes hazard setter with Final Gambit for momentum and chip, and Knockoff to remove an item. But that sounds very boring. But hey, I think every mon has its niche, and Accelgor's being able to speed blitz Sneasler, albeit it won't win the matchup because Accelgor has nothing to kill it with, which is a tad annoying. I still think it's a cool Pokemon though. It's also a ninja, so that's pretty sick as always. So, when you think of Swift Swimmers, what do you think of? Barraskewda, Basculegion, Floatzel, Kingdra, Ludicolo, Beartic even? Well, those are all some very solid answers. However, I would like to quickly introduce you guys to a real Swift Swim sweeper. For when I hop on the National Dax low ladder, and I feel like trying to be funny with the favorite, aka lose, because I'm not gonna pretend that this is that good of a Swift Swimmer, I like to bring Armaldo. Why Armaldo? Because it being a bug type lets it knock out grass types that want to threaten the other water type Swift Swimmers. Yeah, Pelipper can do it too, but I don't want to leave everything. Well, what about Zapdos and Tornadus Therian? Or even Ferrothorn? Those all help deal with grass types. Shut up. They don't get Swords Dance, which clearly makes my argument better, even though every possible result and statistic disagrees with me. Jokes aside though, I think there is room for experimentation on lower tier rain teams with Armaldo. Access to Stealth Rock gives you a reliable and in-rain fast hazard setter. Knockoff is good support if you like that style. And then, like X-Scissor, Earthquake, Stone Edge, and Liquidation are just good attacking moves. Now, what item should you run? Boots is optimal, but I said I was trying to meme on ladder. I'm running Weakness Policy to try to live a Steel or Rock move, because I will not live a Water move in the rain and then sweep. Recommended partners for it? Life Orb, Dry Skin, Jinx. My source? Trust. Okay, there's no real competitive niche here. I just think Leavanny is incredibly friend-shaped, and given its evolution condition from Swadloon, I believe that others should see it in the same way. Honestly, this entire line is underrated. Swaddle is incredibly adorable, and when I play Black 2, I typically pick it up for only that reason alone, and that Leavanny isn't the worst in a playthrough. Swadloon is definitely the middle stage awkward phase, but it works really well because it's in its grumpy teen years, and it shows on its face. The way it wraps itself in its leaves like it's a blanket and wants to be left alone, come on, we can all relate to that. And Leavanny is just a happy, helpful adult bug who helps the little Swaddle grow up to make even more Leavanny. Yeah, using it in battle won't net you much, unless you really need a web sweeper or some highly bizarre late game sweeper. But just because Leavanny isn't good doesn't mean I don't love it. If anything, I think this mon has a nice banger design, and I think we can leave it at that. Is what I would say. But it has the same base stat total as Scizor, a higher attack stat than Lokix, and more bulk than Lokix. Plus Chlorophyll to be a Sun Sweeper. Invest in Leavanny stocks now. Be the first to make this Pokemon viable. Or don't. It's probably easier to use actual good Pokemon. Now speaking of actual good Pokemon, I am a firm believer that this one is not Cope. Sure, it's not the best Pokemon, however, I will always find a niche for a Pokemon with Sturdy and a speed boosting move, because those are my favorite weakness policy wielders every single time. Crustle falls into this category as one of the weakness policy goats because of Sturdy and Shell Smash, along with only having weaknesses to Rock, Steel, and Water last I checked. So once you've made sure to remove the opponent's priority wielding revenge killers, getting Crustle in to use Shell Smash already nets you some solid advantage as a late game sweeper. Weakness policy further enhances that, because if they hit you for super effective damage, you get even more power. Nothing will be able to switch into your Rock Blasts, X Scissors, and Earthquakes. Tear everything apart. In theory anyways. In practice, it will need some solid team support and a competent player to wield efficiently. Of course, sweeping isn't all it does. With Stealth Rock, it provides support. And with Iron Defense and Body Press, you can play it while pretending it's Corviknight. Heck, given that it gets all 3 of the moves I just said, you can go even further and pretend it's Garganical. Or you can play the Stealth Rocks and Spikes variant and pretend you're Ting-Lu, Gliscor, or Garchomp. I'll just say, thank God for Scale Shot finally giving Garchomp the offensive role it deserves. Crustle has sauce. Use it if you feel like it. Don't if you like using the effective proven standards. Alright, I gotta say it for the peeps who like this Pokemon, because every single other Pokemon on this list has been talked about to some capacity by people I have chatted with about the game. But only the most die-hard bug-type enthusiasts I have ever met have said anything about Orbeetle. It's a funny UFO ladybug, which I must say is a massive glow-up from Blipbug being the literal nerd emoji. I don't see a difference between the two. So rather than saying what I think, I'm just gonna go over what a very passionate mono bug player has said to me. It has every support move you could think of, and even the ability to set up and spam stored power. And it's still not that good. And you know what? I think it's an incredibly fair assessment. However, I need to prove this assessment wrong at some point and at least try to make it work somewhere, since it does have the tools to succeed as a supportive Pokemon. With that said, don't let it Gmax, or else it could literally control the minds of everyone in the vicinity. And yeah, that's it. I've been itching to make this list for a while, and I want to know what your thoughts and opinions are. Is there a bug type I didn't mention? What type should we talk about next? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe and also hit the notification bell.